Before we get started, remember to select the subscribe and notification bell to receive live updates on more great content. Have you ever had a Tinder date with someone where they seem like a nice enough person, but you know it's not going anywhere? So you make the decision to go back to their place for sex before you call it a night and never talk to them again. Am I talking about this like it's an uncommon experience for Tinder dates, or am I just describing a Tinder hookup? In any case, that was my relationship with Jack. He seemed like a nice guy in every regard. Sufficiently attractive, he had a thing for talking about the Archie comics. Go figure. I hadn't talked about Archie, let alone read it, since I was a kid. Maybe the topic popped up every once and again after Riverdale came out, but I couldn't say there was a lot we had in common. Our dinner date was filled with way too many awkward pauses. As dinner ended, he asked if I wanted to borrow an Archie comic from him. I agreed. But who are we kidding, right? Anyone who's had Tinder hookups knows the importance of a pretense to bring someone back to your place for sex. I mean, if we just outright said what we were doing, it would be awkward. When we finally got to his place, he apologized and said he had to go in first. His dog wasn't big on strangers, so he had to lock her up in the study. There I stood, outside the door. I could hear a couple chains rattling and some whimpering inside the apartment. What kind of dog was that? It was the strangest whimpering I'd ever heard. Poor dog, I thought. I figured she must be a rescue, which is why she was so antsy and ill-behaved. I would ask Jack about it if there was a lull in our conversation. Finally, the apartment was ready, so Jack led me in. As always, there was a little part of me that was worried he would be a serial killer. Although like most of the adult dating world, I'd had enough Tinder hookups and one-night stands, my guard was sufficiently down. I'd be fine. I took my shoes off at the door to be polite. I was a little surprised to see a pair of shoes at the door that were at least 2 sizes too small for Jack. I was surprised, but not scared. Jack passed me a glass of wine, and I took it. Now I had already had a couple beers on the date, so I wasn't interested in drinking anymore. I still took the glass, though, to be polite. I could hear Jack's dog scratching the inside of that locked door. It was soft scratching, with a little chain jingling. Jack sat down next to me with a giant Archie comic. I'll be honest, I didn't really listen to anything he was saying. I was just waiting until the pretense of coming to the apartment was over, so we could have sex already. From inside the study, I heard the dog scratching get even louder. Jack must have seen the way my eyes drifted to the locked door whenever a loud whimper sounded, or a large scratch hit the door. That dog wanted out. Jack excused himself and went to see how the dog was doing. The whimpering slowly died down, and I guessed Jack was soothing the dog. I was bored out of my mind. How long was this going to take? Also, how on earth did someone have a dog like this and it didn't come up in conversation before now? I opened the Archie comic. A little walk down memory lane. Why not? The usual was inside the comic book. Archie was juggling Veronica and Betty. Reggie was mean. Jughead was eating as many burgers as he could. Help, no dog, 911. The words were scrawled in a deep, red liquid that looked like blood. My eyes went up to the door where Jack was still soothing the dog. There were no more noises. Was it he, she, or they still alive? Who wrote this inside the comic book? Cautiously, my eyes drifted to the wine glass. Some white powder was sitting at the bottom. I didn't stop to think. I ran out the door, and I didn't even pick up my shoes on the way out. I just ran. When I reached the restaurant next door, I finally got out my cell phone and phoned the police. When I turned around, I saw Jack standing outside the restaurant, looking in through the window. When he saw me on my phone, he turned around as quickly as he could and ran back to his apartment. I stayed in the restaurant for another few minutes after I called the police. Then I put my phone down on the counter. Whatever Jack was wrapped up in, I didn't want any part of it. From there, I went to the airport and got on a plane. I walked right in there without any shoes, and I bought a pair of slippers in the gift shop. I never stopped to check on whether or not Jack actually had a dog. Honestly, I didn't want to know.